Would it be right to say that you need to be able to distract before you can attract, shift their attention from something else in order to get their attention? Distraction is an important component of getting attraction, getting attention. Would it be correct to say that? I think you're on the right track, Damian, but understand that what's a distraction, if I'm interrupting you and that causes a distraction, right? There is also seducing, which is also, right, getting attention. And so an interruption is a distraction. So, yeah, I would say that don't think of it as a distraction. Think of it as an interruption. Hey, Rich, would you mind explaining again the difference between attention capture versus paying attention? One is more driven through unconscious behavior. One is driven more by conscious behavior, right? So attention capture is something's doing it, and you're not making the conscious choice that I will pay attention, right? You are just like hooked in. Someone's telling a great story. You're in a movie theater and you're totally... The way I judge whether I'm watching a good movie or not is if I look at my watch during the movie. If my attention is completely captured, I have no desire to look at my watch. As soon as my attention is no longer captured, I then look at my watch, and then it's what I know that I didn't get what I wanted from that movie. So I hope that kind of distinguishes that, right? One is a capturing, one is a more conscious choice. Bro Online. Hi, Rich. As a new marketer, can you please share some of your flaws and how it was for you at the beginning of your marketing career? Did you struggle? Did you almost give up? Please share with me, as I always only heard just great things about you. It sounds like you're a genius. No, I certainly am not. Let's see. Look, I've shared numerous times that I'm a perfectionist. I'm a procrastinator. I have tremendous challenges, and I did. I thought, I was successful offline. I got online, and I struggled quite a bit for the first 2 years. I actually not only struggled, but I basically sacrificed my life for a couple years from a standpoint that all I did was sit in front of the computer. So much so that right now, I'm not like a picture of thinness or anything like that. I'm not ripped or anything like that, but I'm about 195. At my best, I'm about 175. But during that time, I was 250 pounds. And I'm not that tall. So I had a 44-inch waist. I now have a 32-inch waist. I was basically sitting in front of the computer all the time, and I was seeing other people succeed, and I wasn't, and I was, what's wrong with me? But one of the things I was doing, as it relates especially to what we're talking about today, attention, my attention was so diffuse. And it's very hard when you're not focused to accomplish anything of significance. I hope that helps, Bro Online. What are your thoughts? Hold on one of the best ways to grab attention is by matching an explicit or implicit desire of a prospect with a message, sending those explicit and implicit desires. I'm not sure. Obviously that's a technique. Whether it's one of the best ways or not, I'm not sure. Things that are incongruent. Over time, our attention is a protective mechanism that we divert our attention to anything that's incongruous because we don't know, we need to size things up so that we don't get killed, right? This is our genetic background and our ancestry. We don't necessarily need it like that anymore, but that's what happens. So when we first win the lottery, it gets our attention on a daily basis because it's so not like what we're used to. As we become more used to something, we give it less attention, and until we give it no attention, and then it has no impact on our life, kind of like like what all the examples we were talking about. So whether or not that's one of the best ways or not, it certainly can be an effective way for sure. But it's not, it depends on whose attention you're trying to get. It depends on what the context is, the situation, and everything else, right? I just did a Steal Our Winners interview about 2 hours ago, and I did it with Chris Brisson, and Chris has been a friend of mine for a long time. He started a company called Call Loop, and now he has a company called Sales Message. And I remember and Sales Message is this really cool company. It's a texting-based company where he has a ton of different companies as clients, but to just use an example, any kind of sales-based business, whether that's cars or it's computers, nowadays, most prospects want to communicate through text. They don't want phone calls. If you want to get a message across and get a message back, you have such a higher percentage chance of that actually happening by sending a text instead of making a call, right? I don't answer any call I don't recognize, and most of the time I have my ringer off, but I will let text come in. And that's how a lot of people are. And so if you're a salesperson and you need to communicate with someone, you need to be able to text them, but do you want to give every customer that walks into your place of business or however you do business your cell phone number? That's kind of an issue. And so what Chris's company does is gives everyone a different number that they can use for texting that's in their phone, that also the company is privy to, captures the name, the email address, all that. So if a salesperson leaves, they don't leave with all the business. And so it's a thriving company because so many people now are more willing to communicate through text than phone. And so, all these factors come into the equation of how do you get people's attention. Because if they're not answering their phone, then calling them, telling them about the offer ain't going to work, right? I know that's kind of not exactly what you're saying, but I'm just using that as an example, that there are very few always kind of things, but what is common and must happen is you must get your prospect's attention. It's impossible to get them to buy if they're not paying attention unless they're in a zombie state, right? If attention is the new currency and someone has attention deficit disorder, is that person lacking in wealth? No, because what this influx of information, interruption, communication, all these things has done is made a lot of other people behave in a way like they have ADD, like when you have continuous partial attention for a long period of time, that therefore they're not even treated. And so we have, in my opinion, we have a greater ability to deal with that kind of interruptive, overflowing type of information load. We have problems elsewhere, but we don't get as stressed, and we're able to block stuff out, but it has to be the right stuff. New is always better than improved. Provide a new opportunity of doing something. Create a paradigm shift rather than trying to improve an existing condition, kind of like Moses in the Promised Land. Would that be correct? Yeah, new is always better than improved, right? Because once again, you're talking to a group of people, they haven't gotten the results. Something better might not, it's just more, right? New is a totally different way. Not always, right? But, well, yeah, it is. And we wouldn't replace something with something new unless it was better. So new implies more difference. This is my first time here. I'm in the midst of writing a lead gen book. What do you recommend that are the must to include? Angelina, what is the lead gen book on? That's kind of important. And what is the action you want people to take after they've read your book? If you tell me those two things, I'll give you my best answer, Angelina. My niche are hairstylists who rent their chair. It's on 7 areas that they need to be incorporating into their business, such as marketing, finance, their environment, pricing, services, creating systems. It's a new business niche for me, and I have a clean slate as to what my call to action would be, feeling like it would be a checklist or something easy to consume. Yeah, it definitely needs to be easy to consume, Angelina. The issue, though, is that sounds very intimidating to me. So if you look at what I would recommend, Angelina, is to look at the Internet Business Manifesto, right? And because it's what I'm about to say is the difference between what I'm hearing from you, at least. It might not be what you're saying, but what I'm hearing from you and what I did. If you look at the Internet Business Manifesto and you look at that U diagram shows a visual, hopefully visceral image that evokes overwhelm and frustration with all these things to be done. And I'm writing this report, leaving it behind for everyone because I'm no longer going to be coaching, right? I haven't coached anyone on that material since then. And I am leaving it behind, and my solutions seem easier, less work, less effort, right, than what they're doing now. Angelina, what I'm concerned about is when you talk about breaking things into 7 areas, it already seems like a lot of work. That doesn't mean that you can't cover everything that's in those 7 areas. And I think Oren Claff, right, who someone mentioned earlier in the comments, in Flipping the Script, I think is the book, he has this section all about how you're taking everything that's different and grouping it into one thing and then calling it that one thing, right? So, Angelina, your goal is to oversimplify in the beginning so you can get people's attention. And then as they lean in more, you can talk more about these 7 things. But you first have to get their buy-in for their attention. And, oh, look, there's a more time-consuming, more effortful way of doing things. Well, if everyone was always attracted to that, everyone would be thin, everyone would be successful, because we know what we need to do to be thin, to be more successful, to be a better parent. We don't necessarily do it, but we know, right? So, and the reason why we don't do it, one of the reasons is that it's a lot more work. And so you don't start a message with breaking things into 7 areas if they don't even think there is 7 areas. And I don't know that they're doing all those things. So you want to kind of like talk about bringing together a system or a process that ultimately gets done a lot of things, but I wouldn't break it into 7 areas and like make it more of a more than that. And I understand what you're saying about a checklist, but the checklist, if it's broken down into those 7 areas, it looks like a lot to do. And if they don't know that you have a solution that's not that, then you might be pushing people further away. If they get that, and when they get it, it's like, these are all the tasks that go away when you use my system, well, that's a totally different thing. That's why I was asking, if that makes sense. Makes total sense. They're not doing all those things. In fact, they're mostly doing just social media, which is the slow boat to growing their clientele. I could see how they could feel overwhelmed by seeing these 7 areas incorporate. I was wanting to be an eye-opener for them and see why they're not making money. It helps. Thank you. So, yeah, so you do have to take aim at them spending all their time on social media. What you have to do, though, and this is just the human condition, right? So but certainly for entrepreneurs, every entrepreneur thinks that some other entrepreneur's got whatever their issue is figured out. Like, they don't have that problem. So the grass is always greener, right? And that's everybody. You, me, these hairdressers, and everyone else in the world. We always think that someone else has got it figured out. And that, therefore, we're working way harder than we need to get the outcome that other people are getting, right? Like, the last thing we want to consider is that, oh, they get this better result because they just work a lot harder than me. Nobody generally says that to themselves. Well, very few, right? So you have to get them to see that they're going to enjoy, they're going to spend less time in front of their computer. You have to kind of first get them away from that. And the most alluring thing is to get some outcome without having to do anywhere near as much as that. That could be the beginning of it. So hopefully that helps. So if you can capture maximum attention in a minimal amount of time, would you define that as success? I'm thinking of 15-second videos versus long hour webinars. Well, what I would say is that if you can keep someone's attention for an hour long, it's certainly more powerful than a 15-second video as far as the amount of impact, the amount of influence that you have on that person is significantly higher if you hold their attention for an hour than 15 seconds. But really holding their attention, which is obviously not that easy to do. Hey, Rich, great as always, listening while working. And yes, ADD here. Lately, people are talking about not poking pain points, but trying to be more positive and serve to be ethical in these changing times. What are your thoughts on this? I'm working on a specific journal to help people focus on the positive daily and with their future possibilities. I understand it. It just makes me a little bit, I can't get away from, Denise, the impact of that on a societal level. And I think, so I have a problem with it in areas that are unrelated to what you're talking about. And because of that, I don't know that I can see clearly and speak effectively about it. Because when I hear that stuff, Denise, and this is not against you at all, but like that's what Facebook wants, like no negative stuff in their thing. To me, it's kind of like a George Orwell or an Aldous Huxley novel. What I think it was an Aldous Huxley novel where you hold the orb and you feel good. It's like, okay, well, we're just going to hold this our whole lives. That's what we're going to do. We're going to feel good, do nothing, accomplish nothing, achieve nothing. And that most, it was Arthur Schopenhauer that said all great truths go through these stages. First it's ridiculed, then it's violently opposed, then it's accepted as self-evident. When it's violently opposed, like that carbs actually aren't as healthy as what people are saying, or cigarettes are not as healthy as what doctors once claimed, right, in the cigarette companies. If those, that would not be a message that you could get cancer from it, that would be okay today. And I have a problem with that. I think that, and that's why I'm so anti-big tech, because I think they're doing serious damage to the world, that most messages come into the mainstream through alternative ways, and alternative publishing, alternative press has been sort of shut down, and that doesn't bode well for the world, in my opinion, especially when you have these mega media companies that seem to have an agenda other than just reporting honest news on both sides. So cool.